Well, welcome back to another episode of A Spiritual Ascension, my own 5-year journey, where I'm telling my entire story that's happened from 2020 to 2025, what happened before, what happened after. So if you've been following along, I had just landed in Casco, Maine, which is right near Naples. And it was kind of like a kind of a group setting where there was rooms within this home, and just so thankful. And then there was also a knowing, because I went through those 3 weeks of kind of reconnecting with spirit, being out in nature, being by the ocean, and really depending on the universe to try to do that spiritual navigation to say, okay, where is it I'm supposed to go? And 7 years back, Naples had been mentioned, but I had no idea what it meant. And here I was landing right in Naples. So if you know anything about Maine and Naples, there's what's called the causeway that goes across a roadway bridge that goes across Long Lake and Sebago Lake, and just absolutely beautiful. So if you look north, actually it's not, well, kind of northwest, you'll see the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and it is just absolutely beautiful, gorgeous setting there. So during those next couple of weeks, I had just enough money to pay for. Um, he wanted like a month's security, and then I had paid him 2 weeks because it was a weekly rental. So I had paid him 2 weeks rent up front. Um, so now it was all about like just looking for a job. Like I had a place to be, but I needed a job. And I was very low on money. Um, so I was just kind of online every day, just applying for anything kind of in my field, um, any administrative work, any kind of accounting work, which is, my background, and just anything at this point. And then the hard thing is too, is as you know, when you go to a job, you usually don't get paid for 2 to 3 weeks after you start. So I was kind of like, oh, like even if I get a job today, whenever I start, I'm still not going to get paid for another, say, 2, 3 weeks. So I was thinking, I said, maybe I haven't done temporary work since I was like in my 20s. So I said, maybe if I do a temporary job, I could, usually they pay you every week, and at least I would have money. So um, I signed up with a temporary agency, and they sent me on a couple different interviews. And mostly it was kind of like temp to hire. And I seem to always be going towards the South Portland area, and actually ended up at this like seafood place, like where they actually bring in, like right on the ocean, they bring in the lobsters and shrimp and whatever else. And I walked in there, like the smell just like really hits you. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to work it because you go home smelling like that. And but at that point, I didn't even care where I ended up. I just knew I needed work. The thing was, Casco is so far away from South Portland that it would take a lot of gas money to go back and forth to a job. Also, there was the consideration, once I did start the job of going back and forth, and wear and tear on my car. My car was older, and so I wasn't, my car had made it up there, which I wasn't too. worried about, but it was just, it was going to be a lot. Um, in between, I was down to my last, you know, couple dollars, I would say. And I remember going to Walmart and trying to figure out what I could eat, get for food to make that would last me for like, 2 weeks or so. And there was kind of like, I'm hearing like from spirit to say like things are going to be a little bit restricted at this point as far as eating. So kind of like make it last. And that's the thing too, that during your journey, you don't know if you may come to point. I know that my journey, my soul's lesson for this lifetime was all about teaching me something about not having that security like of a home. And that's why I went through what I went through. And I've never not had a roof over my head before this time. I've never gone without a meal or anything. And let me see, right? But dealing with those type of things and really having to understand what other people had to go through, have to continuously go through every day. And it hurts my heart, you know. Um, I used to volunteer a lot at like food banks and different places to go serve like meals at Thanksgiving and things like that to try to help other people, especially you don't understand how severe food insecurity can be. Anyway, off topic. I'm trying to think when, okay. So the woman from the temporary agency had called me and they finally said, well, we do have a job for you, working at a um, place where they make like certain documents or something like that. And it was in Portland, actually, like right outside of Portland. And I said, that's fine. And they said, you'll be able to start next week. So I had already been there 2 weeks. And they said, you'll be able to start next week. Is that right? Yeah. Next Thursday, they said. No, 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 no. At first, it seemed like it was early in the week. I forget. Anyway, they told me I was going to start one day. So I was like, okay, at least I know I'll have a check the next week, get paid that next Friday. Then she changed it and said, oh, they came back and said that they're going to have to start, somebody else is starting before me. They wanted to train that person first. And so I wouldn't start until a different date now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's means now I won't get paid for 2 weeks. And there's nothing I could do at this point. And because I had gone for the interview, the guy, manager liked me and everything. And they had wanted to so-called hire me, like temp to permanent hire. And so I was fine with that. But now I don't have money for that third week of rent. And the landlord had come and, I told him, I said, I'm just waiting, for my first check to come in and hopefully, I'll be able to pay you, have to catch up or something. And he said, well, let me know what's going on. He was nice about it, but of course, anybody coming in for the first time and already you don't have your rent, he's kind of like, well, what's going on? And that was so hard. And I also was kind of at the point where I was like very low on food supply. I never thought about going to like a food pantry. I don't know why. Wow, now that I think about it. Um, but like if you're ever in that position, look for a food pantry and they give food out on certain days and like it's so helpful to so many people. Um, anyway, during my days while I was waiting, I would go to um, the Naples Crossway, and I would just kind of sit there and just look at the water. They had a library nearby Naples, and I would go there and just kind of, because it's starting to get kind of hot now, because now we're talking about mid-June, and sit there in the air and um, just trying to figure out, okay, what are my next steps here? Like I said, okay, now I have somewhere to stay. I have a job. I haven't started it yet, but it's now just about, getting money enough to pay for my room and board and, to buy food, put gas in my car too, which was important going back and forth, which was quite a distance. It probably was about a 35-minute, 40-minute drive from Casco, South Casco to Portland. When it gets to that end of that third week, now I'm starting to get nervous now because I think she called me and they pushed it back again. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. Like, I can't tell the landlord that I can't, I'm not going to have the money for like, 2, 3 more weeks. And I went really into almost like a really, like after having gone through what I just went through in Wells and that really hitting me so hard. And even though I was able to put myself up at hotels and be able to take showers and, take care of myself, even though I had to sleep in the car, like every other night and stuff. Now it was a point of, I don't have any money coming in. I don't have money like I had when I was traveling, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So after that third week, I didn't want to stretch it out. And I said, and I kind of just came to this realization that the divine somehow was telling me, okay, you had this rest now for these 3 weeks, and it was time for you to leave that situation again. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, no way. Like, I can't go through this again, like with no money and being in my car. And so after that third week, I told him, I said, I can't stay. I said, so he agreed to give me back my security deposit minus that 1 week that I owed. And so I now had a little bit, a couple $100 to work with. And I needed gas in my car like really bad. And I was also like really hungry because I was hardly eating anything. I had lost a lot of weight too. I was hardly eating anything each day. And so first thing I did after I left was went and filled up the car, and I remember going to McDonald's, first place I could find, and just getting like a whole meal because I was like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And while I was going on interviews, I had drove around the airport area. There was always hotels around the airport. And I think when I left that evening, which was Friday evening, um, I didn't know where I was going to go. And because I wasn't really familiar with the area up in the Portland. So I knew what I had done in Wells as far as going into hotel parking lots and kind of just bedding down in my car. And so I had seen a couple hotels by the airport, and I went to one like after dark again around 9, 10 o'clock. and was able to, kind of find a space in between cars. And that's where I stayed that first night, that Friday night of leaving Casco. And hard situation, believe me. I don't know what your journey is going to be about, but just know it can be very difficult, this ascension journey. Um, but I'm on the other side of that, and everything I lost is being brought back to me in a different way, but in a much better way. And like the blessings start to now come in because your soul had all of that growth during that time. So if you would like to talk to me about your own journey, there's a link below to book time with me. And also, if you would like a reading, um, there's also, you can use that same link. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.